Welcome to Between Product and Partnerships, a podcast focused on bringing together product, partnership, and engineering leaders to discuss how to build, support, and scale SaaS ecosystems. This podcast is presented by Pandium, an integration platform for building native integrations. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into our podcast, Between Product and Partnerships. For those of you that are here for the first time, we talk about the challenges around technology partnerships, integrations, and SaaS platforms. And we talk to leaders and experts about how they're navigating the B2B SaaS space. Today, I'm welcoming our guest, Marco De Paulis, who is the Director of Ecommerce Partnerships at Ryder Systems. Hi, Marco. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Liz. I appreciate it. Background. I'm probably coming up on almost 10 years in partnerships work right now. Really started when I worked at a few different agencies, and really more as a sales kind of marketing person, and fell into the just natural collaboration with the different platforms and tools that we were using within our services. And as I started to kind of jump around to these different agencies and find different ecosystems, open source technology ecosystems, e-commerce ecosystems, started to focus on Shopify. And that's when I really found like a very deeply connected ecosystem of solutions, and mainly because of Shopify's platform. And it was at that point where I realized that you could just do partnerships like full time as a role. And I really focused on that and wanted to kind of point my career in that direction. And so from there, I jumped over to the SaaS side and continued to stay in the Shopify e-commerce space in MarTech, and then found myself in the e-commerce logistics technology space, which is where I'm at now. I've seen a couple acquisitions and have managed agency partnerships, technology partnerships, and integration, strategic, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how being aware of the partnership space for so long, I'm sure you've seen that evolution of it just being a more prevalent role in SaaS organizations. Certainly. I'm interested are you seeing that role? I'm guessing that role was more seen in larger SaaS organizations, but are you seeing like even smaller SaaS companies starting to implement that role sooner?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen, I think, a lot of, young SaaS startups, hiring a partnerships person, maybe within the first 10, hires, 20 hires, because they see it, especially in the Shopify ecosystem, as such an important channel for growth and for retention. So I've certainly seen it earlier and earlier with smaller and smaller companies, which is great. Some companies are, almost exclusively partnerships driven. Others, balance it with direct sales and demand gen. I do think there is a stage where you can be too early for partnerships if you don't have a function for any type of sales, if you don't have a function for customer success and retention. Then a lot of time and effort spent on partnerships can be wasted if you're not, closing the opportunities you're bringing in, if you're not retaining those clients well. That doesn't sit well with the partners who, obviously have been vouching for you and have been pushing you to their clients. So to make a short answer much longer, seeing it earlier, seeing it with smaller companies, but there is a point where you just shouldn't invest too heavily into it just yet.
You actually answered my question before I was able to ask it. I was going to ask like when would be considered too early, and what you're saying is like first investing in that sales customer success part of the organization. But I'm also curious, besides just focusing on the sales and the CX and making sure those functions are working like a well-oiled machine, is there any other maybe type of SaaS product where we're having a partnerships person might or might not be super prevalent early on?
The way that I would frame it is that there are very different motions on the partnership side depending on what type of product it is. And so the way that I think about it is it a product that a service can be built around, or is it not? Right? So like MarTech, obviously a lot of the MarTech products, you can build services around them as an agency. And that partnership motion is quite different from a partnership motion, for example, like mine right now, where we're not a product that another partner uses. We're just used by the end consumer, the end customer. And so there's no services to build around what we are, positioning and what we're bringing into our partners and what we're trying to go to market with. And so that motion just looks really different. And so I think you have to understand that very early on, and that's going to really influence how heavily you lean into partnerships and what you're going to do as a partner person, and what type of program you're going to build out and what type of support you're going to need.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you can participate in kind of like that ecosystem model in so many different ways versus people building into your product being one that can be embedded into a bunch of other systems, or maybe you have a very valuable API that and your consumers, developers of other ecosystems. Yep. So yeah, it's just so interesting how it could be. But yes, I definitely agree. Thinking about where your product fits in that model early on to determine that. I'd love to hear just like generally broadly what you're working on at Ryder, if that's okay. Just like generally broadly what you're working on, maybe like overall challenges that you're facing and in the partnerships space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, partnerships, it's never, the difference from sales is that a partnership never really has like an end point, and so the way that I look at partnerships as a whole is you're always trying to improve and refine your relationships with your partners. You're always trying to improve and refine how you support them, how you enable them, how you collaborate with their teams, right? Not just that partner person, but all the people within that company, sales, marketing, customer success, support, so that they know you and your value proposition and your product well, and they could speak to it. And then on the flip side, how do you continue to support and enable your own teams, right? Your own customer success team, your own sales team, your own marketing team, and then your own customers. And so really, I'm never not trying to iterate, test, try new things, find new ways to educate, find new ways to inform, find new ways to collaborate, because the fact of the matter is that, people don't stick around at jobs forever. There's always going to be some churn and some turnover and some new faces, both at your company and your partners. And so if you let your foot off the gas, then naturally you're just going to, kind of fall behind. You're going to fall out of people's minds. And there's always a competitive, platform or solution to what you have that is looking to partner with your partners. And so, I don't think we're doing a whole lot of new activities necessarily on a day-to-day basis. It's always just looking at, what's going well, what can be done a little bit better, what can we test, and always asking for feedback from our partners, from our teams. What can we do better? Where are you? Where are there gaps? What are other partners doing that we're not doing? What's exciting you? What's not? So on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to hear a little bit about, because there's definitely something that you mentioned, just competing for mind share of your partners, because there's likely so many other partners in their ecosystem also fighting for their attention.
Yeah.
I'm interested if you're comfortable sharing any things that you've done with your partners that have received just like great feedback from them and you feel engaged them even more in the partnership.
Yeah. No, it's super true, right? Like we only can have so many thoughts in a day. We're only going to, hop into so many portals and review so many pieces of collateral and attend so many lunch and learns, right? So it's really important that when you get those opportunities that you really maximize, that time and that chance with that person, whatever they are, whatever they do. So yeah, I mean, I think that the couple of the things that I am always really trying to focus on and maximize that time. One is, when we're doing sessions with our partners, go-to-market teams, sales, customer success, what have you, we really try and flip the script from the standard kind of boring lunch and learn presentation, death by, Google Slides sort of thing, and demos, and really just try and take a much more personalized, no boring slides, no boring screen shares, very engaged, gamified type of way to engage those people, because you just want to be remembered. You just want to stand out, right? The fact of the matter is that no one's going to remember the 10 features of your product or your platform or your service. People are going to remember the person and just, one or two associations with that person. And so it's always important to try and stand out as much as you can, and just be memorable. And you want to just like be top of mind for when that opportunity comes up, right? With that client, with that brand. And they remember, Marco talked about that one time, that funny looking bald guy who came and talked to us 2 weeks ago. I think he was talking about fulfillment and whatnot. And so that's really my goal in most of those scenarios. The other side that I'm very, very, very focused on all the time, every single day, every minute of my workday, is how can we bring our customers over to our partners, and how can we get them leads and help their business? Because I know that if we're a valuable lead source and a valuable source of revenue and retention for them as a business, they're not going to forget us, and they're going to want to work with us more. They're not going to want to lose that lead source and that value from us. And so they're going to continue to invest more and more when they see all of that value coming from us. And typically that, works in your favor. What comes around goes around. Even when the markets kind of slow down and things get a little bit softer, that method, I don't think it's ever going to go away. But what is going to go away is your, constant me, help me. I need some deals. And that's not really, I think, a long-term sustainable strategy that is going to, keep a partnership in a healthy state.
I love that idea of leading with the value, because I think if you just think in outside of partnerships, just the relationship building in any role or in any circumstance, that is like definitely seeing that mutual benefit, mutual value, that bidirectional relationship building. I think that's definitely great advice. Just to shift gears a little bit, I know that you have a lot of experience with building processes for technology partnerships from like start to end. And I'd love to get your input on what you would consider kind of the life cycle of a technology partnership. I'd love to hear your input on what you would consider that to be.
Yeah. At a high level, I've always been very process oriented. I think just the way I was trained in sales really kind of beat that into my brain from a young age. And if you don't have a process, then you're going to skip steps. And if you skip steps, then you're not going to be successful, right? And that's, I think, true in almost anything work related, but particularly in partnerships where it's sales is like, you have your 4, 5, 6 sales stages, exactly what you need to do in each one. Partnerships is not nearly as, like linear of a process. You're always jumping around, doing here, going there, working with these teams, working with those teams, different stakeholders, different people, integration, non-integration, what have you. And so I've always found it a little bit tricky coming from that very linear background into partnerships. I've always, naturally done well with it, but I like to standardize so that we have something to refer to, especially as you have a team, so that you can maximize your, outcomes with all of your partners both ways, right? Like you want to maximize it for your partner and keep them on track and keep them organized as well as yourself. So with tech partnerships, I've seen tech partnerships from both sides, working at agencies, working with the tech platforms, and then coming over and working with agencies and working with other technology platforms. And I've actually built out like a whole, what I call a mutual success plan with partners. And the mutual success plan is, exactly based on everything I shared. How do you create a process that ensures both sides are aligned, both sides are in agreement, both sides have, stakeholder buy-in, not just from a partner person, but from the customer facing teams, from the product teams, from leadership. Making sure that you have agreements in place, contracts in place, making sure that everyone really understands what the joint value proposition is of your partnership. Not just, hey, they're a really great player in the space, but we need to partner so that we can bring this value to our customers and this value to their customers, and we are better together, not separately. Ensuring that, as you're getting into the technology component, is there technical integration details to consider? That's going to add a lot of work to everyone's plate. There's going to be a lot of product folks involved. There's obviously going to be weeks or months of development time. There's going to be a lot of testing. Then there has to be, different alpha, beta customers working on that, working out the kinks. And then you have to go to market together after that, right? And going to market with an integration is very, very different from just more of a strategic relationship referral type of partnership. You have to put a lot more documentation in place. You have to train all your teams on how things work on both sides. You need a lot of, you have to get ready to do a lot of support work behind the scenes before you can get that thing out. And you have to make sure that once it's out in the market, it's been battle tested and that it's not going to fall on its face, but it's going to really take off. And then, on that launch, there's so much in going to market and really taking it from there to, okay, how do we actually get customers to use this thing? And that's a whole nother, big lane of work where if you build it doesn't mean they're going to come. You have to really work with all the teams to, enable them how to speak to it, how to set it up for customers, how to maximize it, how to market it, and give them a lot of the tools for it, from case studies to landing pages to videos to all the supporting assets. And then from there, you kind of get back into the more normal motion of, all right, let's continue with account mapping. Let's make sure that we're continuing to meet very frequently. We're getting leadership together, not just partner people. We're getting in front of each other's teams, from a go-to-market side, so on and so forth. So a lot of sort of little pieces I just dropped in there. There's probably, another dozen or two, steps within all of those buckets. But yeah, that's just a little bit to get the conversation started.
Yeah, like the overarching life cycle. I'm interested in, so you just described just the amount of work and investment from internal and external teams when it comes to building and launching the integration, taking it to market. So I'm sure there's like thorough analysis involved before discussions of even building an integration happens. So
Totally.
I would think in that life cycle, that part is probably one of the most important pieces to make sure all that the work and investment is actually going to bring that ROI.
Yep.
So I'm actually interested in just what your analysis or the framework for your analysis is like before deciding whether an integration is going to be built.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned a couple of those pieces right around that alignment and that executive buy-in and getting the different teams involved before you make any decisions. What we do internally to help with that process, and someone on my team named Caitlin manages all this, and she does a phenomenal job, which is building integration proposals. And so we do a lot of work to first come up with the idea, or she does rather, and puts together a little bit of a business case and a technical, proposal for what the value is going to be to our customers, how they're, what this could open up for them and enable for them, what that value could be. And then for the business, we really have to make sure we look at what is our alignment in terms of the customers we serve, the prospects we're targeting, what does our mutual customer overlap look like? And is it something that's going to be used by customers right now? Or is this a play to try and get more customers together, strategically from going to market? And trying to put some numbers behind that, again, for the business, right? Because at the end of the day, building integrations costs money because resources and time is an expense of the business that otherwise could be put towards improving the product for your existing customers or improving the product for the standard demand gen funnel for new customers and acquisitions. And so that's a very, very important piece. So you need then to get leadership, you need product, you need, customer success to get involved a little bit and give their feedback. You need to talk to support and see if this, request has come up or if this issue has come up and how this is going to help serve that in any way. And then you try and put that all together and hand it to the product team. that's when they, assess that compared to all of the other things in their backlog, their other priorities, their projects. And they have to determine essentially, where it falls in comparatively in terms of value or what have you. And then at that point, you're kind of beholden to product. And it's important to really have good relationships with the product teams over there and to support them, to help them, because they don't have necessarily the connections, the relationships, the even like full understanding of what the product is that you're trying to pitch to them, right? A lot of those, they're very focused on their own product and their own world. They don't always know all the other players in the ecosystem. And so, yeah, you have to do a lot of hand holding and supporting. And so that relationship, just like it's so critical with your own partners, it's just as critical to build internal relationships as a partnerships person too.
When it comes to the integration, you find like educating, I'm sure there's a lot of internal education, but really educating the product team on the value that this integration could bring. I'm actually interested in how you said attach numbers to the integration. I'm interested in what numbers specifically. I feel like attributing revenue to integrations or like numbers in general could be a challenge. So I'm interested in what numbers you attach early.
Yeah, I mean,
process.
It's really like, I'd say back of the napkin math, right? Just to have something. Essentially, you want to tell the company, look, this is the addressable market of this partnership and of this integration. And here are some, rough forecasted numbers that we could potentially see if we really invested in this, whether we invest very heavily or if we, take more of a light, phased approach. And ultimately, the way that I kind of look at it is, all right, we have an average deal size and we have a win rate for our deals. And so we have to look at how many prospects of ours do they have as customers and how many mutual prospects do we have. We try and, pick a chunk of those numbers, and then we associate an average deal size multiplied by an average close rate to a portion of that addressable market. And that's how you come up with some rough revenue numbers. And then, the business has to analyze, okay, what is that? What is the cost of building this integration? And is this going to offset that cost? There's also, the retention side of it. Like, do you have retention numbers and lifetime value numbers for partnership driven accounts versus non-partnership driven? Because then you can also look at that side of things where if we say, look, the revenue is X, but we know that we retain accounts twice as long as, standard funnel does, then we're not just looking at net new revenue, but we're also looking at the retained revenue and what that's going to be over, X amount of time.
I like that idea of the back of the napkin math, and just getting really creative with how you're attaching numbers to these things.
It's important to preface it. Sorry to cut you off, Liz, but just be very clear when you're communicating this, right? This isn't something we're committing to, or it's not something that we are saying is a guarantee. It's just our assessment of what is the potential to gain from this integration, right? Because it's not just based on does it exist or not, but it also depends on all those other things we were talking about earlier. Okay, now that we have it, we need to really invest in, the marketing around it. We have to invest in the support, the training. We have to spend a lot of time with those, with our partner teams, not just our teams, so on and so forth. So it's a long journey, right? Integrations take a long time. And then there's a lot of education to be done with your partners, with your teams to the market. So it's an investment, not just on the product side, but also on that side of it as well, in terms of time and marketing resources and whatever spend you need for, ad spend, creative, video, all that.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that. I think that's a great example of managing expectations around return on investment, which that could be a whole other conversation. But coming back to the life cycle, with all of your experience in this space, I'm actually interested in like challenges you've faced or are still facing within this integration life cycle, or any pieces that you often see missed or not built in a way that's scalable for people who are starting early on.
I don't think marketing integrations is very straightforward or very easy. And I think that it takes a lot of effort, and again, a lot of stakeholders, because it's not just, doing some social posts and calling it a day. You really have to invest, I think, in a lot of supporting collateral, and a lot of time working with your teams, right? Your partners' teams and your teams to socialize as well and to support it, because not everything is going to, translate from social, from your email blasts, even in-app messaging. You need humans to continue to, really socialize and push it.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's a lot you can overlook very easily from the, go-to-market and enablement side of an integration partnership. I'll be honest, like I overlooked, how closely you need to work with product and how involved you need to get. Some product teams have been shipping a lot of integrations for a long time, others haven't. And there's definitely a steep learning curve, to go from just building your own product to building integrations and, getting those to market. It's just it's a different process in terms of, testing, right? Because you have to test against two different APIs. You're testing with, many, many customers. You have to understand and actually get access and use sandbox accounts for these other platforms that you kind of have to learn. And so there's just a lot more time that goes into it. And then you need documentation, not just for external users, but you really also need documentation internally, right? For support, for customer success on how to troubleshoot things, how to set things up, how it's going to work. Because not everything is, customer facing or external facing when it comes to documentation. So I certainly, I didn't go to school for engineering or anything. I'm a business guy. So I had to learn quite a lot on that side of things over the last few years, transitioning more from like agency to, technology and integration partnerships.
Yeah. And what you're saying is like with that personal learning, there was also some kind of an internal education with the product team around what would be involved in that. Because like you said, there aren't many like product teams out there who are experienced with building and shipping these kinds of integrations. I know you mentioned some pieces, but were there anything specific that you had to kind of communicate and educate to the product team that in a way that you felt brought a lot of collaboration or was able to move things forward? Yeah, I'm curious if there's anything specific.
Honestly, that integration proposal initiative has really helped a lot because, there's every API has a lot of different endpoints, right? And so you can build an integration 1,000 different ways. And so being very prescriptive with, what our goal is as a partnerships team with this integration, like what we think is going to be really valuable, getting what data, where, in which direction, is it one direction, is it bi-directional, talking to customers about it, right? Like early on and getting their feedback, getting their thoughts, getting their ideas, because 99% of the time they're going to have things in mind that you're not going to think of because they're running their business. You're not, you're running your own business. And so they're going to have ideas and requests that you wouldn't have even thought of. And so I think the more time, the more prescriptive, the more definitive and detailed you can be early on in what you're asking for, what you're looking for, what's going to be successful is going to then make for a better integration, development, what's going to make for a better launch, what's going to make for a better story. in what's going to ultimately be more valuable and get more use. And then it's going to impact retention, because we know the more integration someone's using, the more sticky they are. And so you don't always necessarily think about how is this, proposal going to impact the retention of our customers, but ultimately it will, if it's done right and if it's done, in a valuable way.
Yeah. Well, Marco, we're actually coming up on time. And yeah, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I'd like to know if there's anywhere that our audience can connect with you, either on LinkedIn or where can our audience find you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just a comment, if I could rewind and watch this 2 years ago, I think I'd be really happy. So hopefully I can help some folks out with this, but I appreciate, you taking the time here. For me, LinkedIn's the best. My name is Marco De Paulis, Marco, De Paulis, DE space Paulis. You'll find me there, message me, add me, whatever, makes you happy. I have some resources, that I've put together. Most well known as, my mutual success plan for integrations and for, more just referral relationships and partnerships. So that's something I can always share. I'm always happy to. I've done many sessions on that. Just here to help the community, here to help everybody do a better job at partnerships. And thank you for, again, giving me the opportunity to do that.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. For more content on tech partnerships, integrations, and APIs, check out our articles, ebooks, and other resources in the description.